All right, good morning, guys. Today we are going to continue with the book of Revelations. Yes, I say Revelations because it is multiple revelations, but be that as it may. I say that because somebody got mad. It's Revelation, not Revelations. There's no S. When I spell it, there is. He didn't respond back. But some people like to be grammar Nazis. Anyway, I did 9 chapters yesterday. I'm starting to upload those videos. And I just want to, I'm not trying to, let me put a disclaimer out. I'm not trying to say I know what everything means. I'm not trying to point to certain times and say this is what this applies to. I am showing you what I see. And I'm trying to put little tidbits out there to inspire people to do their own research. This is an important book. In chapter 1, verse 3, it says, "Blessed is he who reads, and blessed is he who listens." It's important to read this book out loud. You get more out of it if you read it out loud. I've learned that from personal experience. So, we're just going through it and reading to what it says and applying it to anything that we have nowadays to see if maybe something jumps out at us. Because you never know when the Lord will show a new detail. And while I'm going through this, you can see me on here reading, but you can follow along also, so you can hear it. Follow along with us. And maybe a revelation will jump out at you that I didn't catch. Revelation 10, the mighty angel with the little book. I saw still another mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was on his head. His face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. I read a few commentaries last night about that. They were pretty interesting about what those things could relate to. Because when we read the stuff in the Revelations and then look at what's going on now, you can look at it and you're like the scorpions from hell, the locusts from hell. You can't visualize what that would look like on this earth. Will that 7 years be a totally different time where people will see these kind of horrible things? Who knows? But we know one thing: God is consistent, and we can go back in the Old Testament and look at what happened in the Old Testament as it relates to these things and see what it's probably going to look like. Much of it is going to be just what we have in creation now. It's not going to be anything special or anything new. Our imaginations love to run wild with these kinds of descriptions, but you have to put it in perspective. Will it apply to things that are happening, that are already present and happening in the world? Most likely. Like the beast, the great red dragon that rises up out of the sea. You're not going to see a great red dragon that rises up out of the sea. That's China. That's literally a red dragon is on all their stuff. So we can point to certain things in there. And as we read through this, I'm going to point those things out. But it's not, I'm not telling you that that's what it is. I'm telling you those things to inspire discussion and inspire research. It's important to research these things just for our knowledge. But like in chapter 1, verse 3 says, it is important for us to read these things and to hear them because it's a blessing. Verse 2, he had a little book open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, and cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. When he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. There is a ton of debate about the 7 thunders. Oh, and I want to point one thing out before I keep going. He has, when you read in verse 1, and his feet were like pillars of fire, he had a little open book in his hand, and he put his right foot in the sea and his left foot on the land. You know, that could be a volcano in the ocean and a volcano on the land. The pillars of fire coming up with smoke and stuff. It's possible. I'm just pointing that out, because if we were to look for something that would look like that, that would definitely look like that. Anyway. And he cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. When he cried, that would sound like a volcano too. When he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Now when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up the things which the 7 thunders uttered. I do not write them. Now, I've read a bunch of commentaries about this last night too. Nobody has been able to figure out exactly what those... There's actually a website dedicated to the 7 thunders. Nobody's been able to directly indicate what this means and why. This is the only statement made in the entire Bible that was sealed, not given to people. Even Daniel's prophecy, they were like, hey, seal up this book until the time of the end. But yet we read everything that was in there. It wasn't something where we didn't know the information. It was right there. It just was more manifested at this time. Why was this kept quiet? Now, there's a couple of guys that were talking about this last night on a blog, and they said they think maybe the things those seven thunders said were things that were about to unfold on the earth that were so terrible they didn't need to be written down. There was enough in the book of Revelations to tell you what was coming. Who knows? It is an interesting study to go into. If you have time and you want to dig into it deeper, go online and do some Google searches about this and just read what it is. Now, we're not going to create a doctrine on this, but it's interesting to learn about these things. I think somewhere in the Bible there's hints to what this is. Maybe not what they said, but what they are. Because when you look at all the descriptions about God speaking, it's all thunders. Thunders and peals of lightning. Verse 5, the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised up his hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, and the sea and the things that are in it, that there should be delay no longer. I wonder who that is, if that's Jesus or if that's an angel. Verse 7, but in the days of the sounding of the seventh angel. So what's happening right now is between the sixth trumpet and the seventh trumpet. But in the days of the sounding of the seventh angel, when he is about to sound. So like a lot of people, when they read the book of Revelations, they go, well, see, all these things are going to happen like this. But they don't read what it says. This says in the days. It's going to be a frame of time as this stuff unfolds. But in the days of the sounding of the seventh angel, when he is about to sound, the mystery of God would be finished, as he declared to his servants, the prophets. This is a very loaded statement. A lot of people have taken this to say, okay, so see, the rapture isn't going to happen at the beginning of the tribulation. It's going to happen at the midway point because that's when this angel is sounding. Well, not necessarily. There's been several mysteries that have been brought forth. The one main mystery, that makes sense. But the one main mystery that I think about when this happens is if you go back and read in chapter 5 and look and see, okay, that's the church in there. Now, what is the church doing while they're up there? It's a marriage. It's a marriage supper. Now, you go to, is it Colossians chapter 5, I think, and read in there, that gives you, for the first 1/3 of it, or first half of it is about a man and woman. The second half is about Jesus and the church, the bride and the bridegroom. And at the end, he says, this is a great mystery, but I speak of Christ and the church. And he was talking about the marriage that was going to happen. Now we read in here, what does this say? But in the days of the sounding of the seventh angel, when he is about to sound, the mystery of God would be finished. So which mystery? Was it that mystery? Or was it the mystery of the rapture? There's you can do a Bible study on the different mysteries that were given and go and look at them and go, well, which mystery was it? So that statement, that loaded statement, doesn't necessarily apply to the rapture. It could apply to the marriage. Maybe that's what those seven thunders said. They were talking about it. Who knows? But the time frame is right. That's when that stuff would be happening. So just pointing out details. That's it. Then the voice, which I heard from heaven, spoke to me again and said, go take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel who stands on the sea and on the earth. So I went to the angel and said to him, give me the little book. And he said to me, take and eat it, and it will make your stomach bitter, but it will be as sweet as honey in your mouth. Then I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it. And it was as sweet as honey in my mouth. But when I had eaten it, it made my stomach become bitter. And he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples nations, tongues, and kings. So a major door is left open as far as communication goes into what all that means, what's going on here, what he's talking about. Why did he have to eat that book? Was it to give him the ability to prophesy? Was it to give him more revelation? Evidently, the words were good, the words were sweet, but its truths were bitter. Maybe it was the Bible. Maybe that was actually a celestial completed Bible. Who knows? We're not 100% sure. There's commentaries out there about that stuff, and it's good reading to go in and to study into it. Now, keep in mind, when you go and dig into these things, don't create a doctrine based on that information. And don't let that change how you view your salvation. You know what the truth is, and that's why you're there. But we read this stuff to understand more. We're seeking God. Morning prayer. I did a morning prayer, actually, at the filming of this. The morning prayer this morning was Psalm 14. And I talked in there about, will he find people seeking him instead of looking for other things? So that's what the focus has to be. We want to learn more about God. We want to learn more about Jesus Christ. And we want to learn more about what's coming. It's important because these are details we can teach people who most likely will be left here. And if we see some of these things, we know what to do and what to look for and how it's all going to unfold. All right, guys, let's keep on going on through this study. As new revelations come, I'll share them with you. And we'll just keep on rocking through this and see where it takes us. Time is so short right now. The elections, and I'm going to do a video based on this, but the elections in Israel, they've now had a second set of elections. There's talks of doing a third set of elections this year. And I'm going to do a video based on this. There was a rabbi named Rabbi Kaduri, Yitzhak Kaduri. He gave a lot of different little sayings that you couldn't really count them as prophecies, but now you can count them as prophecies. They've all come true. There was a controversy about him that a year after he died, he had left a letter saying, I met the Mashiach. I know who he is. And he wrote his name down in there. And they opened the letter a year later, and it was in code. They posted it everywhere. They're like, hey, look, here it is. Because Rabbi Kaduri was the best of the best. Then they figured out the code and immediately took it down and have tried to hide all evidence of it. Because what it said, the name of Mashiach was Yehoshua, which is translated to Yeshua, which is translated in our language to Jesus. And they were like, no, that can't be possible. But some interesting things that he said. He said that the one day, this was months before he got sick, this is months before Ariel Sharon went into a coma. He had said, Mashiach will come after Ariel Sharon dies. Ariel Sharon goes into a coma. This is back a few years. Then he got sick and died. Ariel Sharon was in a coma for 8 years and then finally died. That was back in, I think, 2014. Look what's happening now. So there's credibility to what he said. Then, before he died, he was talking to a student, and they were talking about, going into the orthodoxy. And he told him, when Israel has elections but no government, the Mashiach is right around the corner. And at that time, they didn't understand what he means. This was 40 years ago. They didn't understand what he was talking about. Now that they look at Israel today, now they fully understand what he was talking about. And there's an article I'm going to do a video on that talks about some of this stuff from Breaking Israel News. But we see exactly all the things. There's even stuff in the Bible about this too, about that elections but no government. I'll cover that in the video. But we see all these things unfolding. This is part of the reason why I'm covering the book of Revelations. It needs to be read. I think people are going to have access to some of this whenever we're gone. But it's important that the information gets out there, that it's there for people to share. You guys know you can share all my videos, to share, to get the word out there, to let people know to plant seeds. If you're not saved, today is that day. Don't take the chance, because if you find yourself in the tribulation, you have no excuse. At that point, you should know, okay, this was all legit. and millions will. I love you guys. I'll bless you guys in Jesus' name, and I'll see you all in the next video.